No problem. Thanks for having me here.
Right on, man.
There we go. All right, I think we're all good. So I am going to just turn down the music, I guess. They'll be taking the recording right off of OBS. So thanks for coming on, Freddie. If you didn't know, if you weren't around this weekend, Freddie put together a pretty cool feat of strength, taking down the GwentSlam. He is your champion of GwentSlam. He's the first champion of a CD Projekt Red third-party license tournament, going the distance, getting through the 10-hour plus qualifier the following week, or the previous week, getting himself together for a quick trip to Austria, and then taking down some pretty strong opponents in Swim, Shaggy, and then ultimately Game King to become your first GwentSlam winner and also recipient of crown points and a nice sum of money. Welcome to the podcast, Freddie, and thanks so much, and congratulations.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for the kind words, and yeah, having me here should be a good time.
Yeah, we're really excited to get you on the show, especially right after your victory at GwentSlam. So thanks for joining us live for Commander's Horn.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, getting a chance to do it live. We trying to take some more opportunities, and I saw a chance that we could get this done. But I wanted to ask you just to start off. So you qualified for GwentSlam. You went through the Strivewire tournament, 10+ hours. You went through how many? I believe is that 8 rounds. How many rounds was that?
I think it was 9 in total. But
okay.
Yeah, it was a tough one for sure.
Yeah. So you had 9 rounds there, and and there wasn't a lot of time after the event to get yourself together and to get to Austria. How did you prepare in that kind of in between point between what you did for the GwentSlam qualifier and then actually GwentSlam? Like, were you just practice? Like, how many hours a day did you practice? Who'd you practice with? Talk to us about that week.
Yeah, spill the beans.
Tell us how you did it.
Yeah, I mean, I was not very confident that I'd actually qualify, to be honest. Like, when I signed up for Life Coaches qualifier, I don't know, I thought I'd just wing it, and you never know what can happen in card games, right? But I wasn't like my hopes weren't super high, but yeah, I mean, got through. I didn't even end up doing that much in terms of practice, like nothing like excessively more than usual, I tested for maybe a few hours with Vishra, played a fair amount of ladder for a couple of days, and that was pretty much it. But yeah.
Great.
Do you feel like the ladder adequately prepared you for the Strivewire tournament? Were you seeing a lot? Like, what were you seeing in that very long, kind of grueling tournament? I know you streamed a whole lot of it, but I want to know, like, what were your thoughts on that sort of grueling competition going through the 9 rounds?
I mean, there were so many players in that one, right? Like, I can't remember exactly how many people were competing, but it was something like, I think it was like a 500-person thing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like the deck diversity was pretty crazy. Obviously, lots of different factions. Although I mean, it was more like the classic Scoia'tael, Northern Realms, monsters most of the time. A little bit of Nilfgaard. I think my opponent in the final brought Mill, but I didn't get to see that, fortunately.
Yeah.
I don't know. The decks were definitely different on the qualifiers compared to in the tournament itself, where it was a lot of the same stuff, game after game. But and in terms of ladder like preparation, it actually turned out being kind of not that useful. I ran into quite a few Scoia'tael players, and then after working out I was going to ban it, it seemed. Yeah, I mean, that wasn't ideal, but yeah, whatever. And you see a lot of Northern Realms as well, which I mean, for me that was fine, but I guess most people were going to ban it, so yeah, not maybe the most useful way to prepare.
True. But your most banned deck, or was it a different deck each time? I'm trying to remember. I know that Shaggy banned your mill, and I believe Swim banned did ban Radovid, if I'm not mistaken. And then it was it Radovid banned in the finals as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
You had to win with mill, movement and monsters, right?
Yeah, I ban Scoia'tael every time. I don't know. I think if you look at the win rates actually for Scoia'tael across the tournament, it was something crazy, like maybe even 90% win rate on that faction, which is it's pretty nuts. So I'm pretty glad. Like I think I found the right ban in that case. And I mean, I didn't lose a game with Scoia'tael either, so it wasn't. I think everyone had a lot of success with that deck. Obviously, Northern Realms is pretty good as well, but yeah.
So let's talk about Scoia'tael for a second. What is it about movement Scoia'tael? Because you ran like kind of a movement variant with your marksman and lots of skirmishers, agitators. What is it about the movement Scoia'tael variant that appeals to you more than the spell-based variant, or I guess other variants of Scoia'tael? I know that they're not all competitive, but I think a lot of people brought spells to the GwentSlam, whereas you chose to have more of a dwarf movement base. What were your thoughts there?
Yeah, well, on Pro Ladder, I'd basically done my 100 Scoia'tael games with a Bruver movement deck, sort of one inspired by. I mean, I take a lot of decks from Raikou, who's a Japanese deck builder, and he made a Francesca movement sort of gold weather deck, and I basically played a Bruver version of that for like the whole of the Pro Ladder, and movement turns out it's pretty good. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Hailstorm, that card alone is kind of crazy. Like, if you can line everything up and play a long round. And yeah, I just decided to cut the gold weather because most people are probably going to have clears, and like it's kind of easy to play around decks with it because you just play a shorter round 3 and don't do a very long round or whatever. And yeah, I mean, being able to double Hailstorm is even better than anything else, as it turns out.
Yeah, Ethna just taking the place of Coral.
Yeah,
5 strength gold card. Hailstorm.
Completely.
What do you know? That's pretty good. Did you ever talk to Raikou? Like, did you ever actually speak with him, or actually or was it just kind of like looking at his lists and like trading the odd tweet back and forth?
Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't actually. I mean, I don't know if his English is good, but I haven't really interacted with him much.
Mm-hmm.
I observe from the sidelines as he, creates all these amazing creations for you. He's a good deck builder for sure.
Yeah, I've definitely heard a lot about him, and his decks are pretty strong. But I want to ask you about, you said you laddered exclusively on the pro ladder with Bruver in movement, but you ended up running Ethna, as we just mentioned, in the tournament. So was this like a particular tournament tech? Was there something were you just so keyed in on being able to reuse something as strong as Hailstorm twice in the tournament, and you wanted that tool at your disposal more than maybe, I guess, the versatility of Bruver that I think is useful on the ladder?
Yep, I mean, like, for the Bruver deck was slightly different in a few ways. Like, first off, it used gold weather as a kind of crutch, and you were finding it from Yavin, and effectively you used Bruver to always guarantee you had Yavin, and then to guarantee gold weather off of that. And then, yeah, you just get carried by the strength of the spells. The Ithne deck, I kind of wanted it to be. I mean, it's similar in how it works. You want a long round, and then you just knock them down with a spell, right? The Hailstorm.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like by getting rid of the Bruver, you added like a lot more potential power level to the deck, but you sacrifice a little bit of consistency. I tried to mitigate it with a few cards like ADC and then Avalak with Renew to kind of draw a lot more cards through the deck and thin it. But I didn't get to test it so much, so I'm still not like 100% sure if it's even better or good at all. But it worked out. So I mean, yeah, I'm probably gonna play more with it if there's not like a patch soon or whatever. So.
Well, I wonder actually, because we heard this morning that there's going to be a dev stream tomorrow. So one of the reasons why we're doing this live podcast right now is that you basically can get it, you can access it right now. This is going to be a part of episode 53, but we're going to hold back, I think, on the publishing because we're going to look at that dev stream. It's going to be some stuff that's going to be coming out. So we're pretty excited to see what will come from the dev stream. But I just want to talk to you more about the decks that you were playing in the GwentSlam, Freddy. You ran a pretty unconventional Swarm Consume monster list. And it was missing, like it was notoriously missing like some staple monster cards, and instead was replaced with stuff like Erika's Behemoth and Necker Warriors to increase your Harpies on top of that, and kind of built around Yennefer as well. How did you go about building that deck exactly?
Well, this one again was another gem from Raikou, so I can't take credit for that one really. I mean, yeah, basically, I saw it on Twitter. I was like, I'll give this a go. Couple of games in, I was like, oh my goodness, you just play Woodland and you win the game. Like, it's nuts, dude. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, basically, like, factions at the moment are kind of being carried by a couple of cards. Like, Scoia'tael gets carried by Hailstorm, and maybe you could argue Protectors or whatever. Monsters is Woodland 100%. and maybe you could argue Northern Realms, Stennis or whatever. But yeah, I mean, just playing Woodland as many times as possible effectively wins you games, so that's pretty good. And then like getting rid of the Vran Necker package makes it a lot like, I want to say consistent, but obviously you can draw a lot more blanks with the deck I was playing. It's sort of your like style of play is more flexible when you don't have to work around playing Neckers from round 2 into round 3, and when you don't have to worry about, having long rounds with Vran eating multiple units. It just allows you to sort of go in between the rounds more flexibly, and as long as you play all your thinning cards, it feels a lot easier and stronger, I think, than the normal Dagon, which we see a lot of.
Cool.
So it seems like you went for two sort of different style choices when it comes to deciding on the two deck lists for the tournament, being that you had a high power deck with Ethna and then a more consistent deck with Dagon, and both were very powerful. And I imagine like losing the coin flip against that turn 1 Woodland play is just devastating, and just watching your opponent like across the table from you just like wring their hands trying to figure out what are they going to do. There's no one card that catches up.
Yeah, I mean it really is scary. I mean the card itself is what, like, I think it's like 20 points or something nuts like that, and then fog as well ticking, and it thins your deck by 2 cards. Like, mind blown. I don't know. And then you just renew it and you do it all over again. It's great. But no, I mean, to be honest, it's actually not even, I'm not even sure the deck is that consistent. I mean, during my ladder testing, probably like, I want to say like maybe even half the games, or like somewhere between like 30% and 50% of the games, I did have like pretty bricked mulligan. It just turns out I got really lucky in GwentSlam to not actually, I think there's only like maybe one game where I had like a dead card in hand, and like even then that's pretty salvageable with the deck, because he was mulligan away harpies in round 2, and like you get them out later anyway. So yeah.
How has your mind changed on Mill? Well, I'm basically talking about all your decks at this point. So how has your mind changed on the Mill archetype since the tournament ended? Maybe you've reflected on it now. I mean, you were the player that brought Mill, that was able to win with Mill. You broke through. Swim gave you a little bit of a hard time for the first 2 games, and then you managed to get that win against his Northern Realms. And then you did get that first win against Game King's Nilfgaard Soldier hybrid deck as well. But still, in general, though, when we talked right after the matches, you weren't sure if it was actually still good. How do you feel about it right now?
Yeah, I mean, like, Mill's a really interesting, yeah, I think that's the best word to describe it, archetype. I've always said it effectively punishes incorrect play, I guess, would be the best way to say it. And, like, it also, I guess, feeds on the fear of people who are scared of it, like Shaggy banning it. I think maybe like he said he just didn't want to play against it. I mean, that's fair enough. He did a service for everyone, I think. But as a deck, I'm not even sure it's that strong. Like if you, I don't know, Sweden played very well against it, for example. Like in the Skellige match and the Dagon match, he was just like miles ahead in those games. And I mean, he did have some techs, but his Dagon deck wasn't even, teched against Mill at all. He just played it very well. And for the Skellige deck, I mean, he just, when you have ways to kill Avalak and you, like, know how to play the matchup in that you don't play any thinning cards at all, you're pretty much set completely. Like, there's no chance beating a player who plays perfectly against Mill effectively. And I guess for that reason, like, I find it quite, like, from now on, I'm definitely going to be scared to play it, because if you run into an opponent that knows what they're doing, it's very hard to get wins with it. That doesn't mean it's like bad for ladder, but I think for tournaments it's pretty risky. And then obviously I've also not even had that much fun playing it right over there. Like it's very stressful, like playing it in a tournament where you could just get 0-3'd, right? And so I don't know. I mean, like the game against Game King, the one I had to play, there were many opportunities where he could have completely ruined my plans, let's say, but
like in the middle of round 2, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there were at least like 2 or 3 probably moments I could have just hated my life, but
Because
Yeah,
Mill has such like a
fine.
defined like kind of like I need to do this first, like play Avalok, renew Avalok, demote Avalok, bounce Avalok. Like at any point that's disrupted. I mean, it seems
Yeah,
like two Avalok plays against a deck that thins is probably good, but then when you have people who are keeping all their harpies and commandos and stuff, I guess it's a little bit harder. But
yeah, yeah,
it seemed like Mill is very strong, but it seemed to have like a ceiling in the tournament, and getting through on those wins. Like yeah, it prevented the 3-0, which I think was realistic for at any point. I think everybody was playing around it pretty well.
And
yeah.
I
Sorry, you.
was I was going to ask you about we're sort of leading into this discussion about Mill as an archetype maybe, and that there's going to be a pretty huge change announced tomorrow, maybe a small change announced tomorrow, and maybe it'll affect Mill. And I mean, we've heard though from the developers that they want Mill to be an archetype in Nilfgaard. They want it to stick around, or at least that's been what we've seen from various Twitch chats and Reddit and that sort of thing. So um, Life Coach also said that he thinks that Mill as an archetype is working. It's just that maybe there's a couple of tools that it has that are too powerful, but that it's also, as you mentioned, a little bit hard on the competitive scene because when the Mill gets going, defeat is so inevitable
And slow.
it
Yeah,
just
yeah,
takes
yeah,
so long to get there. It's just like you're
yeah.
you're starving to death is what it feels like. And I don't think we want viewers to see that, but I mean, you dominated with this deck, and it's a very large reason for your success and how well you played it. So, I mean, I'm just wondering, like, where do we go from here? Like, what do you think would be the linchpin change they could make to change Mill into something more acceptable as an archetype?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very difficult question to, or problem to solve. Like, Mill, in its current state, it's in a kind of horrible spot. I don't like it how it is at the moment. It's strong enough to be played, but also not strong enough. Like yeah, I'm not gonna go into it. Basically, I don't know. I think either the way that you win with Mill needs to be changed. Like maybe you don't, for example, go up 7 cards or whatever, and then win because you have rot tosses at the end. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you could like gain points whenever you mill a card or something like that instead. I'm not sure how that could work, but other than that, they probably just need to lose some of the tools, and
Hmm.
I don't know. I preferred it when Mill, like last patch when Mogwai played it in Gwent together, for example. I think it was in a good spot then because it was not like it really wasn't that viable, and I played a fair amount of it on ladder. You could hit 50% win rate if you were, having a good day, but apart from that, it was yeah kind of gimmicky and but interesting games when you do come across it. And like Mill promotes very cerebral and skill intensive games, while it's like really horrible to watch and to cast. Like a lot of the decisions within a game of Mill versus whatever else, they're pretty skill intensive, I guess, for both players.
Yeah, I think that like because we had to cast a lot of the Mill games. I think it was 9 in total, including the crashes too. And I'm going to ask you about the crashes in just a second, but I think that there was just so many points where I felt like if a newer player was tuning into this tournament, it might have been the first tournament they ever watched, and they have to see so many games where the opponent of Mill is basically like not playing the deck the way it's like expected to play. Like the harpies are in hand, and like the blue, like why is there just like a bunch of 3 strength bronze cards in the hand that would normally be happy to come out of the deck? So I was talking about how all these games were being played inside out and upside down, and like Mill was getting beat by these decks, but it was just a very weird kind of display of like this
Yeah.
bizarro Gwent. And I think that for a tournament standpoint, while Mill is very much a tournament deck, I think that it's it just changes. It warps the way you would talk about a game and consider playing any given deck of Gwent. So I think that the polarizing nature of Mill is not just because people think that it might be binary, but also because there's really only one way to play against it, I suppose. I don't know. Like I think that it
Yeah,
makes it
yeah.
weird. It makes it weird.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, it comes back to like it's interesting to play. I mean, some people would disagree with that and say it's really unfun, but yeah, it changes the game, like the core concepts of the game, I suppose, and how you win and how you prevent yourself from losing. And But yeah, it's difficult for newer players to understand and to enjoy watching as well. It's quite a big ask. I don't know.
Hmm.
In some ways, I kind of regret taking it now, to be honest, because like, yeah,
Because there's a lot of dialogue
yeah,
about it.
yeah. I mean, that's a good thing, right? Like, if it gets changed, this would happen at some point, probably in the future, anyway. I think,
Hmm.
if it didn't get, noticed, but no, it's more just like, people have to sit through potentially hour-long games, and yeah. But what can you do, right?
And when the crash happened in the Mill Monster game versus Swim, did you talk to Swim about like the potential outcome, like when it came down to you just conceding the game? This is the second one that was the regame was offered, I think, and you said, "Nah, it's fine, you got this one." Did you guys talk about like potential outcome, or was it just kind of like you just kind of knew it was over?
Yeah, briefly. I mean, the rule that we had in place was, what was it, like, if the points are in hand for it to be a win, like 100% of the time, then it's a win.
Mm.
Otherwise, you have to either agree upon the result yourself or take the regame. And basically, like, Swim was like way far ahead in that game.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't even know what happened. Like, he completely blew me out. But I don't know. I guess it was a combination of like my hand was a little bit awkward at the start, and I didn't get weather clears maybe. But yeah, that's besides the point. He was in a dominating position, and if he played that correctly, which he obviously was going to do, because he's really, I mean, he played very well against Mill. Yeah, I mean, he was going to win for sure. So we just gave him the win. Seemed fair, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so can you sort of talk us through that? Because when you showed up, you fell down 2 games in a row to Swim, and you had to do a reverse sweep in order to advance. And can you sort of take us through the matches with Swim and Shaggy and the finals with Game King, and what would you say about those matchups and maybe about those particular players?
Uh-huh. Well, when I saw that I was against Swim for the first game, I was actually super scared because I honestly like he gets like sometimes a bit of a bad rep or like a rep for being more messing around more on ladder and stuff, right? Than being a super competitive player. But genuinely, he is like up there, top five, maybe even top three in my opinion, in terms of just like intelligence concerning the game and everything.
Hmm.
And his deck building as well for the tournament was pretty crazy. Like I don't know,
Scorches.
him and Shaggy were talking about his decks, and I was just terrified, like listening.
Yeah.
It was pretty scary, and I knew he was gonna like be ready for Mill in multiple ways, which he was. So that was yeah. Basically, like going into the tournament, I was like, if I get past day one, if I can beat Swim, I maybe even have a chance to win this. Because I knew Shaggy wasn't gonna, he didn't want to deal with Mill and then Game King. I mean, yeah, we had to wait and see, but the first day was definitely very nerve-wracking. Like that series was horrible, to be honest. Like the games went on for ages, and the crashes happened. It was
Yeah.
terrible, but I got there in the end, and yeah, it was yeah. I was after the two losses, I was pretty tired and a little bit disappointed. Thought, well, I might go out here. That would kind of suck. No wins. But yeah, kept in mind that my decks were decent against Radovid. I could maybe, with a bit of luck, get through it, and that's what happened eventually.
Yeah, I think that those matches were like it was long. Like if you didn't catch all of the stream, the first day was an 8 hour ordeal, and the not an ordeal. It was actually the whole day was great. It's just those crashes. It really slowed down there in the middle. But it was 8 hours in the first day and only 5 on the second day, and both of them had 4 matches if you want to include our show match as an actual match. But it was still like pretty stark difference. Like where'd those extra 2.5 hours come from? That was basically it. Um, just because you mentioned Radovid, I just want to talk about your last deck, Northern Realms. I think that there is a reasonable split, not even just in the tournament, but I think general, like a lot of people are running Henselt or Radovid, and they're kind of different in a lot of ways. But what makes you prefer? They're kind of different in a lot of ways. Yeah, I know how that sounds. What makes you prefer Radovid over Henselt at the moment?
I haven't even tried Henselt this patch. I think I'm pretty sure I haven't even played it, but maybe like one game with Game King's version. But I don't know the Radovid deck. I mean, the first time I played that, I was like, this is basically a perfect deck. It has everything you need. It has thinning. It has power. It has control. It has yeah, you win coin flip, you're usually Gucci with that. It's pretty hard to lose with it. You can, yeah, like the thinning is crazy. It's on like another level compared to other decks, and then you can also still win against Mill with it because you have an Neke Deco or whatever. And then the finishers are just like bonkers, but that's just Northern Realms, I guess. I suppose what differentiates that between that and the Henselt is the I don't know, Radovid is basically more consistent in my eyes. You know, you're always thinning down to your win conditions. Well, pretty much always, and you have some control available, so you know you're never caught out by carryover or whatever. Whereas with Henselt, it's a bit more high rolly. If you know get a good hand and you win the coin flip, I mean you just throw up like a billion points onto the board with Henselt, and then you're chilling. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you just that's sort of the Henselt game plan then, and I don't know, were you just so you just didn't have the experience with Henselt and were just more comfortable with Radovid, and it's I mean, you know, Mick Beard's a pretty big fan of Radovid. He'd be the first to tell you that, and I agree with you. I think that Henselt's kind of high rolly because you have to have like that sort of perfect situation to get really max value out of Henselt, and a lot of people have learned to play around it, but. Yeah, I was going to ask you, you know, you went through all these matches and you went through this huge qualifying period and you went through 2 days of matches at Life Coach's house. And some people, I mean, what would you say to someone who said that you were lucky?
They'd be right in many ways. I mean, yeah, it's a card game, and you know, card games have variance. There's gonna be a fair amount of luck involved. I don't know. I like to think that there's a little bit of skill in there as well.
You're being way too humble right now, I think.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of skill.
I mean, yeah, like there were many times I nearly dropped out of the qualifier, and to be honest, like I kind of want to say some of those matches were more like intense for me, like towards the end especially, because I was so tired and everything. But yeah, I don't know, like there were a lot of good players, you know, at GwentSlam, and ultimately a lot of it comes down to, you know, do you get lucky with your draws? Like, I really can't complain about how well I drew in any of those games. It's kind of it was really good, to be honest. But yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Hey, anybody in the chat, if you have a question for Freddybabes or about the GwentSlam in general that you'd like our take on it. I mean, we all were either there or watched the whole thing or won it, so we'd be happy to chat with you guys. And I think there are a couple of things in there. I just wanted to call some stuff out. Let's see what we have here. I think some stuff will come in. I don't know, Greybox, if you had another point you wanted to hit while these things come in.
Okay, I got a quick question, and it's you have to answer it very fast, and you're not allowed to say ball pit. What was your favorite part of hanging out at Life Coach's house?
I have to answer it fast, and I can't say ball pit. Oh no. I mean the pool was pretty cool as well. Yeah, that seems like a cheap answer though.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. I don't know. Meeting everyone was a real blast. Like super cool people.
Yeah.
McBeard included. Like some great conversations and some great times. Yeah, it was good.
I told Freddybabes about the time I got stranded in an airport in Prague, and I thought that I was gonna die. It wasn't an awkward thing at all for somebody just to talk to you about when you meet them.
No, genuinely, it's great. Like learning about. I don't know. I love talking to people, and I'm not really good at talking about myself, so. Most of the time. This is probably an exception. Yeah.
Freddie, I think you may have touched on this when we already talked about it. There's a question coming in from Mercavarius. Why did you ban Squirtle in every matchup? And would I guess I'm going to add a little bit to this question. Would there have been a lineup or a leader or a player where you would have not considered banning Squirtle?
Oh, that's really interesting. I mean, so the reason for banning it was, in my opinion, it was going to be the best tournament deck because, I mean, you can play around it, but like it has some really 100-0 matchups. I think, like Northern Realms is very hard to win with against Squirtle, which most people are going to ban it anyway, right? But then my mill deck was pretty much auto lose to like a Squirtle player playing decently. Like you can kill Avalact multiple times. Some people even run Summoning Circle. I know Swim's version had Manticore Venom, so like
Oh wow.
no chance at all. So I just figured like I don't enjoy playing against that deck either. So yeah, and it allowed me to target the Northern Realms deck that people would bring every time. So yeah, I guess that's like the combined reason for it. And what was the second part was
Would there have been a player
yeah,
or a lineup where you would have not banned Scoia'tael?
yeah, I mean I did think about it. I think for the Game King one, I was maybe thinking of banning the Northern Realms, but I don't know. It's ultimately like too good of a deal not to. I think
Mm.
for that format, like, and yeah, as I said, Squirtle was the highest win rate by far, like no questions asked. So yeah, I think that deck needed to just not be a part of it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Bambuzz 2015 asks, how do you feel about RNG in Gwent, and is it well tuned?
I mean, I played a fair amount of Hearthstone, and that's the obvious comparison that people always jump to, Um, I think in Gwent there's a lot less, variance than in other games for sure. I mean, that's been said a lot of times, right? The fact that decks only 25 cards and then you can thin like a huge amount of them out of your deck as well. It just means if you build your deck correctly, you can thin to very few cards every time, guarantee certain cards in cases where you can play other cards that fetch other cards, and it's like the deck building really helps to negate some of the variance there. I mean, coin flip is like people always love to jump to that. I don't think it made like the biggest difference in this tournament compared to some other ones, and that might just be because of like deck diversity. When you have mirrors, it's going to be more of an important factor, right? Just because
Mhm.
everyone's playing the same cards. But I think them yeah. I mean, that's basically my answer. Yeah, it's perfectly fine. I think the amount of RNG there is for a card game.
Yeah, I think it's like I think it's mostly controlled. You can control the range for some of the cards, like stuff like Agitator. You can kind of customize what the Agitator is going to pull for you, and like
Yeah,
Dijkstra, you play him later. You know what you're going to get roughly, or there's like a lot of stuff that has some crazy potential. Like Dijkstra, I think is one of the best tournament cards because it's so exciting to watch it be played. You can control the variance in a certain level, and no one really knows what's going to happen. And
yeah.
I don't have a problem with like a card like Dijkstra. I think Dijkstra is fantastic personally. Here's a question here. You don't have to answer this one at all, but this question comes in from Sushan 2010. What did you do with the reward money? Maybe you can just give us like a little peek of what you have planned for that.
Um, well, I don't want to be boring, but I probably just won't spend any of it. I don't know. Like maybe I'll upgrade my computer or something so I can actually stream other games, but Uh, I'm not even gonna. Yeah, I don't know. It's quite a lot of money to get at my age, I think. So don't want to do anything too hasty, basically.
Invest, buy low,
Yeah,
buy low.
yeah, yeah,
Good
yeah.
plan.
Buy some real estate.
Mm,
Well, it's
good plan.
fine.
Well,
Yeah, it's a little bit,
small
maybe
one.
need a little tiny little bit of real estate. Just a square of land. That's where it really grows. Tim Cruz 177. What is the most different / interesting deck in your opinion for GwentSlam? I'll open this up to the floor though, but Freddie, by all means.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot actually. Uh,
Hmm.
I feel like this tournament was one of the best, maybe the best for in terms of the amount of decks we saw. Uh, I mean, probably the obvious go-to is like Game King's Nilfgaards,
Hmm.
which look pretty funky. It's kind of a shame we didn't get to see more of it because Panda banned it in the first round.
Hmm.
But I mean, he said he did well with it, and it seemed pretty cool. Other than that, Swim's list were pretty inventive. Like Scorch, he played in two of his decks, and yeah. And then like the Drowner monster decks that Shaggy and Swim were playing as well were both pretty unique and inventive. And
Hmm.
yeah, from that, um,
Yeah,
what do you got?
I think Game King's Nilfgaard was probably like because I think there's a lot of buzz about it because he was talking about it a lot and he's like having a lot of
Yeah,
fun talking about the spicy deck that had Guardian, lots of soldiers in it, like it just kind of but also spies at the same time. I don't know, like it was really cool. I also thought you said that Swim has Manticore Venom in a Squirtle deck. I kind of would like to have seen. I would like to have seen that deck, I think, but since it was banned by you and he didn't advance, we didn't get a chance to see it. But it's like a mystery list. I want to hear more about it, I guess. Greyboxer, what about you? What did you think was the deck of choice?
Yeah, I mean, I might have alluded to this earlier, but I'm a big time movement player on this patch. I've been playing movement almost exclusively since the patch launched, and I really like your take on it. And I like the tech of Dorigare or Dorigary, or however Americanly I can say it and screw it up. I particularly think that Avaloq is really good for consistency in the deck, even though you don't always want to draw out all your mercenaries because they can brick your agitators. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was a great list, so good on you.
Oh, thank you.
We got a question from Gulax too, asking if there's a change in the upcoming patch that you'd like to see or that you think is necessary.
I don't really like, in terms of gameplay changes, I wouldn't say there's anything like pressingly necessary. I mean, coin flip solutions, you can just say that what do you want, I guess. Like, that's quite a common answer, I suppose, but I don't think it's super important. Apart from that, like more like a way to spectate games would be really, really key at this point. And draft mode. I mean, these things have been suggested, and I think everyone knows they're coming at some point. So yeah, as soon as possible, the upcoming patch, that would be great. Yeah.
We like new stuff, that's for sure.
It's mid-season, so I don't know. Like,
I actually did not expect any changes this season. So if this change is coming, I didn't expect, nor am I aware of them. But we have a dev stream coming up tomorrow. If you guys don't know, it should be, I believe it's 9 p.m. CEST, 3 p.m. EST. So we're going to see what's coming out of that, and the podcast will be slightly delayed as Greyboxer, and I want to talk about that immediately afterwards. Let's see if there's anything else here. What is Datapunkt? How you doing? Datapunkt's asking, what is our opinion on searching range on the pro ladder, as far as there not actually being like an MMR matching, but you just kind of can get anybody. You can get anybody on the pro ladder.
Is that the case? I mean, I've seen. I think I saw a couple of people talking about it. I don't really know how to form an opinion on that. I guess, yeah, it would be better if it would be like restricted, I guess. But there's probably not enough people playing to warrant that. So, you know.
It's kind of what I think too. I think that just you don't want to have like a situation where you just only have like 5 people you could realistically play against at any particular level for a faction, and then just not really be able to advance because you can't find any games. So I think that with the pool being smaller, it kind of has to be like that. If you can believe that everybody who is there deserves to be there and is a challenge for you and is like, you know, fair to build points off of, then absolutely, I think it's personally fine, because you did have to be at a level to get into it. So, you know, even like the worst 4,200 player should still be able to take a game from you at any given time. So I think that's fine. Personally, I don't know what you think, Greyboxer.
Yeah, I think that having a wide search range and also having a wide pool, like this pro ladder is the first time we've had a pro ladder, and since the cutoff was 4,250 MMR or rank 20 or 4,200 MMR rather, we saw that there was 10,000 people eligible to play in the pro ladder, or even more than that. So I think that if you want to foster competitive Gwent, it isn't always going to be the people who have grinded 1,000 games to get to the top of the actual ladder, and maybe it's the people who have played 400 or 500 games or even less to make it to the top, to make 4,200 MMR, for example. So I like seeing them push to have a more populated pro ladder to see how it really shakes out, and to get more people to really test it, because this is a beta. So I like the extended search range, even though I don't necessarily like the idea that you can sort of high roll into low MMR opponents, and that sort of becomes the name of the game.
Folks, this has been great. I think that this has been a healthy little chat here with Freddybabes, and I really want to just thank everybody for sticking around at the end of the stream for this. It wasn't last minute, but I would say that it was like within the last hour. Or I didn't know if we could get it all together. If Freddybabes you would be available, or if I'd be able to get the UI all set up while I was still alive. But it all came together here very well. Thanks so much, Freddybabes, for your time. Any closing statements? Are you still streaming Gwent at a regular time as well? Where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, I am, of course. Just Twitch, Freddybabes. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Thanks very much for having me. It was fun chatting, and
Yeah.
Hope you guys have a good one.
And we have you for a little chat as well on the. I got that soundbite.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting that.
It's good. It's good. No, me and Swim were chatting outside, and Swim just asked me what I thought about the tournament, and I thought, well, since you're asking me, let's just step outside and we can talk about it on record. Swim, that was great. That was a great idea. And then what is this here? Oh, because you're putting up the gray box is just showing Lady of the Lake here in his frame here because I think somebody asked about. Okay, one last question. Who's read the Witcher books? Who's read the Witcher books? I'm still working on it myself. Greybox, you've read them all. Freddybabes, have you read them?
Nope.
Not so much?
None.
Oh, you might like them.
Unapologetic.
Yeah.
No time to read when you're a
always,
champ.
yeah, I get flack for that a lot, actually. But, yeah. Maybe one day.
All right, guys, I will cut the recording here, but just thanks once again, Freddybabes. Thanks, Greyboxer, for getting right in there because I know you had a busy day as well. So we'll continue on the other side. We'll see you all on the other side. Thanks again, everybody.